no era tan difícil. A veces sí tenía que preguntar que un poquito más despacio. So creo que es también un poco la diferencia es la rapidez en que hablan. A veces en español la gente le gusta hablar bien rápido en algunos lugares.
Sí, creo que en casi todos los países es como en mi país tenemos español más rápido que los otros. Creo que es como una competencia. Eso es algo que no entiendo. It's like I speak the fastest Spanish, like it's a race or something like that.
Sí, no, y eso definitivamente era la más grande diferencia que especialmente para mi esposo que está más aprendiendo el español, está en un lugar más básico con su español que necesitaba preguntar que un poquito más despacio.
Sí, entiendo. Entonces suena muy interesante. Ahora vamos a cambiar el inglés para hablar un poquito de la manera en que hicieron el viaje. So because this I know has to do with, minimalism and talking about finances, I want to ask you about this part in English because I know that there's probably people listening here that think, wow, I have a job, I have children, I have other obligations, and I would love to spend a month in Ecuador and a month in El Salvador, pero no puedo, I can't, right? Like I don't have the time, I don't have the money. So can you talk a little bit about how you were able to plan this trip and spend this much time when I think for most of us, like I mentioned earlier, for most of us, I think we'd be happy with 2 weeks of vacation a year. So how did you manage to do what I think Tim Ferriss popularized the term mini retirement, right? Like where you would take extended time to actually explore a country instead of just visiting for like a week or something like that. So you talk about how you were able to accomplish that and how someone listening to this might be able to do the same.
Yes, of course. So I feel like, you just have to have different expectations when you're going to be doing long-term slow travel. And so I'm a big fan of slow travel and immersive travel because I want to go and really experience the culture. I want my kids to really experience the way people live in those areas. And so just having that mentality means you're going to approach it different. And so when it came to money, we did a lot of learning when it came to personal finance. And so one of the things that we did first before we ever took this trip was that we paid off all our debt. And so I graduated college with $46,000 of debt. My husband graduated with college debt. And then we kind of followed that very traditional American dream of like, oh, well, now we need to buy new cars because we have our engineering jobs. And it wasn't till I found out about this movement that maybe you've heard of, or maybe you haven't. It's called FIRE, which is Financial Independence, Retire Early, is when I really realized that I could do more with my money. I always wanted to pay off my debt aggressively and be out of my student loan debt. But then I didn't know what to do next with my money. And so for us, once we found that movement, it kind of really opened our eyes up to the fact that our money, instead of just buying us the next nicest car or the next, the new iPhone or whatever the new technology is, instead of constantly upgrading our life, our money could buy us our time. And so that was really kind of the first step, was making that shift of what do I really want to do with my day and how much money do I need to be able to do that? And so we aggressively paid off our debt. We aggressively saved to make sure we had like a safety net. And then we started planning for this mini retirement. So if I'm completely honest with you, my dream is to actually take like a year mini retirement and travel for a full year with my kids. But I knew that was kind of going to be a hard sell. My husband's definitely a lot more traditional when it comes to work and identifying yourself with like your job. And so I needed to have like something a little bit more palatable. And so that's why we came up with like a 3-month mini retirement. Something we didn't talk about here at all was that we also did like a 21-day road trip in the US at the same time as this whole thing. And so one of the things you have to do, obviously, is if you're going to take time off, is understand what your spending is. And so we track our spending every month. We go back and we look at where is all our money going? And then once you have that understanding of where all your spending is going, you can then start to kind of pull things out of places you don't want to spend on so that you can have more money for, the vacation or the wedding or taking a year off. And so the first step is always understanding your spending. And the way to understand that is to track it, to visit it. And so we have money dates every month to do that sort of thing.
Wow. So I think it starts right with the decision. You kind of said that you decided that this was something you really wanted to do. And you also talked about time, which I think is really important because people always think about, you're going to work for a certain amount of time. You have to put in the hours, so to speak. And then you'll get to retire when you're, 70, 80 now. I mean, I think the date keeps getting pushed out for when people feel like they can retire because things are just so expensive depending on where you are. But it sounds like you were really intentional about deciding for you and really with your family having to make it as a goal that we are going to get off this treadmill, right? We're going to not always try to upgrade and get the newest and latest, but we're going to actually decide what's really important. So I think that's an important part of it. But then there comes like the tactics, right? There's a lot of people that talk about travel, and I do want you to define what is slow travel because you mentioned that earlier. So for people who may not be familiar with like slow travel or immersive travel, can you talk about what those are and then how you were able to sort of plan out these like two months and, a road trip on top of that? How far in advance did you have to plan that out? And tell us a little bit about that concept of slow travel.
Yeah, sure. So to me, slow travel or just the concept of slow travel is usually when you go and you stay somewhere for more than a week, more than 2 weeks. You're trying to kind of fall into a pace almost. You're trying to feel local. You're trying to find a local shop. You're trying to create a tempo and a daily routine when you're slow traveling. And that's why I said during the beginning part of the interview that we didn't do a ton of touristy things when we were in El Salvador at the beginning, is because we were really trying to kind of get out of that US mindset of like, go, 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 go. Where's the next thing? What are we going to accomplish? We were really trying to step back and just relax and breathe and be with ourselves and be with our kids and just be present. And so that's definitely what the difference in slow travel as opposed to vacationing, which is like you're going with a purpose of like accomplishing something or seeing something and then going back home. And sometimes vacationing can be super tiring because it's so, it's so high expectations, I guess. And so for us, the amount of time that you need to like plan something like this really depends on what your goal is. Like I said, my goal initially was like a year thing. So my process took a little bit longer because I really had to edit it for myself and make it more reasonable and more manageable. But one of the things I did is that on the internet, I will share this link with you. I'll send the email to you. But there's something called